What if I told you the decisions you make in the next 6 to 12 months could either fast forward your retirement plans or leave money sitting on the table? Today, we're diving into a powerful strategy that could change your financial future. If you're an empty nester and you're wondering if now is the time to downsize, you don't want to miss this. I'm joined again by Gerald Bilker, and today we're going to walk through how downsizing at the right time can unlock massive financial potential and why having a fast forward mindset is a game changer that most people overlook. And for whatever reason, we're all kind of in the moment and living life just right here, right now. But slowing down and actually taking time to think about the future and kind of having that fast forward mindset is what's going to help us be in a better position in our future. So welcome, Gerald. I'm always
Thank you.
excited to have conversations with you because you are so knowledgeable in everything. And so we're just going to chat today about downsizing and what this means for people from a financial standpoint and a real estate standpoint, and with the retirement involved in this too. Like, it can make or break your retirement, and it could actually set you up to be able to retire sooner rather than later. Or if you don't plan, maybe you're going to end up retiring later than sooner. So the fast forward mindset for me is just the mindset of making, future forward decisions today that align with where you want to be 5, 10, 15 years down the road, and helping you get clear on your future lifestyle, and reverse engineering that so that your financial moves align you to get to where you want to go. So
Yeah.
let's chat about it. What do
Do
you think? What do you think? So many empty nesters. Why do they wait so long to make a move that could actually help them fast track their financial goals?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I truthfully, whenever it comes to money, I think a lot of it kind of points back to the education and the understanding and the know-how. And I mean, I know we've chatted about that a lot in the past, so I'm not going to kind of go all the way down that rabbit hole again. But I think that's probably one of the biggest things, just the uncertainty or the feeling around it. And I mean, exactly what we're going through right now in the markets. Like, when the stock market is a little bit bumpy and a little bit volatile, people tend to be emotional towards it. I mean, we're humans, we work hard for our money. And so naturally I understand that, but that's again where the education comes in. And so, but oftentimes on the other end of that, when we kind of sit down and demonstrate what it can do for someone, the common response is, why didn't I do this 5 or 10 years ago, kind of thing. And
Right.
so it comes down to it's almost timing in somebody's life, that something almost has to happen for them to kind of be shaken up a little bit to say, okay, I gotta look at this. And so I think those are some of the reasons that people just put this off. It's always something that people know they need to do, but they
Mhm.
just, they wait
I al-
because
I always joke. I always joke with my clients, and I'm like, so the kids are gone. Do you really believe that they're coming back? Is that why you're staying? Like, do you think that they're going to be those boomerang kids that need to come back home? Because usually at the point of me sitting down with them, their children are adults and they have children of their own. And chances are they're probably not coming back to the nest. So it's like you have this big house with these, big financial commitments and time. And like, when you retire, you want to actually like enjoy yourself and take some, me time and not have to spend all your money on utilities and taxes and all those things. So, downsizing can be a very powerful financial move for people. And one of the things is being able to unlock the equity that they have in their home. So if you're in a house and you haven't moved around a bunch, and you haven't remortgaged a bunch, because we all have this lifestyle mentality that we always have to have the next best thing. But if you've been smart and you've stayed in your home and you've just let your equity nest kind of grow, then you probably have a pretty good little nest egg of equity inside of your home. So that's one thing that you have working for you when you're kind of preparing to downsize is you actually have a little investment nest egg that you probably didn't really think about. And so you're not going to know exactly how much, obviously, you've got stored away there until you have someone like myself, a realtor, come in and just kind of give you, an evaluation of your home. And the market is different, it seems like, every week. But having an idea of the equity in your home is going to be a powerful part of this puzzle, because if you've got $200,000 in equity, maybe that will spark you to start thinking, okay, maybe I could downsize, and maybe I could, make that move and maybe take that equity and put it somewhere else. Because another reason why it's great to downsize is obviously it lowers your living costs, your taxes and your utilities and your maintenance. Usually with a smaller home comes smaller taxes. So obviously each municipality is always different for their taxes, but generally speaking, if you own a bigger home and you go into something smaller, your taxes and your financial commitments for that are going to be less. And then obviously taking the money that you have as your equity and taking it and paying off some debt or investing it. Obviously that is something that we can help you with, but just knowing what you can do with that. Like, I'm in the process personally right now with my mortgage coming due in December and trying to figure out what is the right thing to do. Like, we do have equity in our home, and trying to figure out, where that goes, or what strategically makes sense to have our money and our equity work for us. But then at the same time, emotionally, I'm not going to dismiss the fact that downsizing is a very big emotional step, because a lot of people who, if you've been in your home for 30 years or more, even 20 years, that's a big deal, because you've got lots of memories inside these walls that you aren't necessarily ready to maybe let go or let somebody else have those walls. But I do think that that is one of the big things I think that people struggle with, I think, is that emotional attachment to the home. I think that's a big one. But what do you think, Gerald, are some of the biggest financial advantages that you see when people downsize strategically?
Yeah, totally. And even quickly, you shared a lot of value there that I hope a lot of people didn't miss. And I think one of them, because naturally, I think sometimes in our industries are seen as very transactional industries, but I think that's where, especially when you have that conversation with someone like yourself and figuring out where is my home, or how is my home positioned, what can I get for it, but then also work with somebody in the financial side that's helping you make a financial plan to piece this all together. I think where people kind of, again, they don't feel maybe confident about what's going on is they're kind of flying by the seat of their pants in terms of, okay, if I sell this, I can put this here and like, hopefully it all works out. And it's like, you said it, these are big financial decisions, and we need to know really that we're making an educated decision. And that's where having conversations with someone like yourself, like in our industry too, to piece it all together so you could feel more comfortable and more confident in kind of these steps. As you said, it's a very emotional process sometimes. And I think if you could feel better about it, the better. But yeah, I think the positives, I mean, you said it. I mean, as we get older, the idea is our debts are gone or close to being paid. Our children are now ideally out of our house. So what that means is generally speaking, our food consumption and our overhead and everything is going down. So our need for income, so to speak, or the amount of money that it takes to run our household is ideally going down. And especially as we are entering retirement, that's what we want. We want to have very little financial responsibility, liability, but we want a lot of assets and equity and investments. And so that's where I think it's such a positive. And I know we've chatted about this before, but if you're like, you use the example of 100, 200 grand, I mean, and that's probably on the smaller end of the amount of equity that people would have, especially if they're in their home for 10, 15, 20, 25 years. But even on that now, like if you're able to take that and like max out your tax-free savings accounts and do these types of things, that 100, 200, 300, 400 grand, that could pay you $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month for 20 or 30 years and give you that additional income for you to enjoy your grandkids, go on trips, do those type of things. And so I think those are things that people aren't very aware of naturally when it comes to kind of the power of equity.
And that's outside of a pension plan too. Like people, I'm finding as I'm having conversations with people, even friends my age, who are, I just secured a job. It's got a great pension plan. And that was the biggest, thing that I was looking for. And I'm thinking to myself, if you were just educated and knew that you could provide yourself with a pension plan so much better than, having to rely on an employer to do that for you.
Yeah.
But when you're in a situation like downsizing and you do have equity and you do have the education that, you're provided and being able to make that educated decision, it definitely can be a game changer for you, because even with tax-free savings accounts, some people don't even know what they are. And it's like, you're at such a disadvantage when you're uneducated. So having people like ourselves in your corner to be able to help you kind of lay it all out on the table. And I know that's something that a lot of people struggle with, I'll say, is kind of being vulnerable and saying, yeah, here's what's going on in my life. Here's what my financial picture looks like. It's hard for people to open up to somebody and give them all of that information. And then secondly, trust them with the advice that they're giving them. But I do think it's really, really important to be advised by somebody in the industry, because they're going to be the ones that obviously have your best intentions, or hopefully have your best intentions. We definitely will always have your best intentions. But it's also about lifestyle and freeing up that equity to enhance your life, because you can certainly be living a different life if you access that equity in your home. So that's something that I think that some people just don't, they see their house as their home, but they don't see it as, a potential for enhancing their life from a financial standpoint. And sometimes when you just have that conversation of, if you accessed this money, whether and then maybe they're not even downsizing, maybe they're just using that equity to pay off debt, that's enhancing your lifestyle in itself, because your financial commitments are not as much, right?
Totally. Frees up cash flow. I think something as well that you see a lot more in the industry is people that, are maybe they're older, 50, 60, 70 years old, and they're, again, making these changes. They're also kind of passing on some of their wealth while they're still alive to their adult children who, help to buy their own first home or whatever it is, pay off some debt that's kind of causing them not being able to buy that home. And so it's something that a lot more people are thinking of and being aware of. Well, I rather pass along this money to kids while they're still alive so I can see them kind of take advantage of it now, rather than potentially 10, 20, 30 years from now when I'm no longer here, like that kind of an idea. So that's something as well, in addition to all those things that you just shared and we talked about, that I think are kind of top of mind for people. So,
And not to mention too, health conditions can also play a big role as well. Like if somebody falls ill or has an accident or something, and you're in this big house, that can sometimes cause issues, especially if bedrooms are up on the second floor and, and now you're looking at, okay, now we really need to transition because of these situations. And I'm not saying that's the case, but freak accidents happen, things happen that we don't expect. So having the education behind you being able to say, okay, I remember watching this video about maybe we need to talk to somebody about, downsizing or selling our house and getting a bungalow or something like that. So what do you think are the risks of waiting too long from a financial standpoint?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's going to be different for everybody for sure. I think it's the kind of the maybe on the selling of a house part, depending on where the markets are at, maybe what you can get versus maybe a different time. I think something
Yes,
we're kind of
definitely.
experiencing right now. I mean, maybe again, I'm no real estate pro, but just from a very basic outsider looking in, I feel the market's starting to pick up, and
It
there's a
is.
lot more.
Yeah.
And so as a result, like that's going to drive those costs. And so as a result of that, you're it's that buying opportunity, right? So I think that's something that can either help or harm you.
And understanding the seasonal real estate market too, because there's seasons in real estate. So, it like within the same year, you can still make money on the sale of your home. Like sometimes it's not that big of a difference, but if you need to buy yourself a little bit of time,
Yeah,
and you need to wait till fall because maybe you need to get list ready, maybe you need to add some value to your home because you want to squeeze as much value out of your home as possible. Well, then after you have somebody like myself coming in and I give you your little homework checklist of everything you need to do, if you want 500 and it's worth 470 right now, then you have $30,000 worth of work that you need to figure out and how to get that return on investment. So sometimes it just takes somebody coming in, telling you what you need to do or how to improve the value of your home. And then, finally, when you're finished all those things, which never happens on time or never happens to when you think it's going to, then maybe we land in fall and you're like, oh, well, now we have to wait till spring. Well, that's not always the case.
right. Yeah. And I think sometimes the thought process, because like thinking naturally of someone receiving a sum of money and then investing it later, what that kind of thing. I think someone's thought process might be, hey, I've just sold my home and I have X amount of hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity. Is right now a good time to invest? And I think immediately people think about that, especially as someone's approaching retirement. And I just had this conversation actually earlier today, where naturally people that are approaching retirement get a little bit more nervous of market cycles, and naturally somebody that's in their 60s aren't going to be 100% growth investor like someone like you or I, where ideally we
Right.
have 10, 20, 30 years. But that also doesn't mean that they're going to get away from experiencing kind of the volatility. I mean, it's going to be significantly less, but we have to also remind ourselves that we need to have longevity as well with our money. So we can't afford to be having our money do nothing either. And when people say to me, Gerald, like I'm approaching retirement, like I don't have enough time to really make back this money, that if the market dips 5 or 10%, I always remind them, I say, well, in your first year of retirement, if you have 500 grand in your investments, are you going to take all $500,000 out of your account? The answer is no. I've
Right.
in almost 10 years, I've never met somebody that in their first year of retirement emptied their investment accounts. You're taking that 10, 20, 30, 50, whatever that is that fits your financial goal. And we've seen it time and time again in our markets, your markets, in the real estate world, the stock market. It's ebbs and flows. It's all part of it. But that's why, again, reiterating, it's so important to be working with somebody to best understand kind of your own personal scenario. But I think that's something that causes people to hold off way too long because they're trying to time the market on the exact right day. And the truth is, every time you look back in history, they're like, well, I missed it. I should have invested here. And it's impossible to time the market. You just get in the market and allow the market do what it needs to do for
And
you.
make smart strategic moves while you're in the market too. Like right now, the volatility, everyone's getting scared. Everybody should be buying stocks and being really excited that everything is on sale right now.
Exactly.
So when it comes time to selling your home and say now that you've decided that you're going to sell and you sell your home and now you do have $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 of equity after downsizing, then the question becomes, well, what do I do now with this money once I've got it? I've got my new little condo, or I've got my new little bungalow that we're happy in. So what do we do with the money? Well, most people will throw it in the bank, or do whatever the bank tells them to do, because that's always what they believe to be the best advice, which is never ever the best advice, not normally anyways. So I guess the top maybe three things that I think that would be a good thing to do is obviously to pay off your debts and reduce your monthly obligations, of course. To invest wisely, obviously, and you want somebody like ourselves helping you to make those decisions, because the bank is always conservative and they don't necessarily have access to other investment products that are probably better for you. And then always having that, emergency fund for that rainy day or that unknown. Obviously, making sure that you still have insurance, life insurance, if you have lots of debt still, but being set up to financially use your money the right way. What would you say, Gerald?
Yeah, I love everything you just said. I think, yeah. So kind of generalization, maybe somebody in their 40s, 50s, or 50s, 60s, 70s kind of thing, in that age demographic. You're right. Make sure all of our debts are paid off, and to cut down on our monthly expenses. But then after that, build a strong emergency fund and figure out, okay, if I'm whatever that is for you, on a monthly basis, I need 1,000 or 2,000 or 4,000 to run my life. Then make sure you have a few months of those kind of set aside. So if something does come up, you don't have to naturally pull out of the investments right away. But then other than that, yeah, I personally, first and foremost, and what I've found is that for most people in that 50, 60, 70 plus demographic, most of that age group have no idea what a tax-free savings account is, because it is relatively new. It's been around since 2008, 2009. And that demographic has almost saved their whole life in an RSP, just because that's kind of almost what they've been taught. And so if someone's coming into this sum of money and that it's a personal residence, naturally it's going to be tax-free, that you want to take that money and top up your TFSAs. And then over and above that, you're probably going to look at a non-registered account. And if there's partners, you're probably going to do a joint one together. But from there, then you just every year top up your TFSA and keep kind of going that way. But yeah, you mentioned it, debt-free. Make sure you have an emergency fund. And then if there is a need for life insurance, for sure, I think it's important. But at the same time, like you and I always talk about, if your debts are paid, you have significant money saved, and your kids are older, you may not have a need for life insurance anymore. And so you should be putting more of your money into your savings and investments at this point of your life. So, but yeah, no, I think from there, then if you're invested appropriately, even as a balanced investor, averaging 5, 6, 7% a year on hundreds of thousands of dollars, that's going to pay you a pretty good monthly kind of withdrawal income that you may not ever even have to worry about running out of money, because it's going to continue to grow while you're kind of taking the interest, so to speak. So
right. And so that's all the more reason to sometimes have this conversation sooner than when, like, if your kids are out and you do have this big house and you're not really necessarily utilizing the home itself, why prolong that potential financial gain and lifestyle? I mean, there's been times where I've been sitting down and going, like, we could totally live in a smaller house and a smaller space and have less. And I joke all the time, because my first home that I bought was a trailer in Trenton at Sunny Creek Estates. And I paid $55,000 for it. And I joke all the time. And I'm thinking, I said to my husband, could you imagine if we still lived there? Like, we would be multimillionaires and already be retired right now. Like, but we always have this, mentality of need the next best thing, bigger house, best new car, all those things. But it's when you look at all the people who are retiring early and having, very wealthy future retirements, you're looking at them and they stayed in their home for 30 years. They still drive a 2015, whatever. They're not going out and getting the next best thing or the bigger house or whatever. And I think that has a big, I think that's a big puzzle piece to your future financial picture, because if you keep
100%.
remortgaging and you keep doing these things, and I'm learning this because I'm learning from my own mistakes of my own personal spending, and it's just really important to realize that. And I hear it all the time in real estate how, there was an instance last year where this older couple in their 80s needed to sell and go into a retirement home just because of their health. And they almost couldn't because they financially were going to essentially run out of money, which makes me really sad because they didn't plan for their retirement and their future as old people. So this is why I believe now in doing this kind of education, because we, even in our 30s, need to know what is down the road and how to plan for it so that we're not looking back going, oh man, I wish I would have. Because I'm already saying I wish I would have, and I'm still in my 30s, but at least I know now that I know the tools and everything that I need to use to kind of have a better future come retirement. And so I just think it's important to have this education, and this is why we have these conversations to kind of pour into you guys. And please just know that we are here to support you and help you and answer your questions. So if you ever have questions, comment below on whichever platform, because this gets posted on all the socials. So please feel free to comment or DM us. We're always happy to answer your questions, and we're here for you.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Gerald, and we'll talk to you guys all soon.
Sounds great.